Fighting in the besieged southeastern city of Mariupol continues as the deadline for Russia's latest call to surrender passes without response. Russia says that over 2,000 Ukrainian troops are still defending the ruined Azovstal steelworks factory. It has become the last bastion of Ukraine's resistance in the port city. Around 1,000 civilians are believed to be sheltering in basements and tunnels that run underneath the plant. Ukraine's Deputy Prime Minister said a humanitarian corridor had been agreed to free civilians still trapped there. Kyiv has pleaded for people in Mariupol to take this opportunity to now leave.
Mariupol is holding up. Fighting is taking place around the Azovstal factory and in other territories. It's not easy for the enemy there. They are suffering many losses. Today, there are humanitarian corridors announced from Mariupol. We want to urge everyone who can listen to use those corridors.
Well, as Russian forces close in on Mariupol, Ukrainian troops are struggling to survive with depleted provisions as well as low ammunition. In a desperate appeal to Western leaders via social media, a commander from the Azov Marine Unit warned that fighting in the city appears to be in its final throes.
This is our appeal to the world. This could be the last appeal of our lives. We are probably facing our last days, if not hours. The enemy is outnumbering us 10 to 1. They have advantage in the air, in artillery, in their forces on land, in equipment and in tanks. We are only defending one object, the Azovstal plant, where, in addition to military personnel, there are also civilians who have fallen victim in this war.
Well, closely following the latest developments in Ukraine for us is our correspondent Sasha Vakulina, who joins me once again in the studio. Sasha, we just heard it there, that dire warning from the commander that soldiers in the Azov steel plant could essentially be killed within hours. What is the latest that you are hearing from Mariupol?
The latest, this is the reports by Reuters agency that dozens of civilians have boarded a small convoy of buses to flee Mariupol. Now, this is what we know. But it remains to be seen. We still have to wait a little bit to see how they moved from there. Because, of course, to be evacuated from Mariupol, you still have to go through the Russian-controlled territory, passing by Berdyansk and then going up north towards Zaporizhia. And it's plenty of space. I mean, it's really far for them, as they have to pass those numerous checkpoints on the territories that are now controlled by Russia. Also, with the dozens of civilians, we've heard that there are over 100,000 people are still civilians in Mariupol, so we still need to wait to see how many of those, of course, managed to evacuate. And when it comes to the Ukrainian fighters, yes, indeed, they're still there. They're not evacuating, they're holding up. They are still fighting in Mariupol. The heavy shelling and fighting continues there. And they asked today, they appealed for a third country to evacuate Ukrainian forces as well. Now, this is, in military terms, called an extraction procedure for soldiers and for citizens, but this one can only be done by a third-party country. For the moment, that hasn't happened.
All right. Meanwhile, of course, we've got what is potentially a pivotal battle being waged in the east, according to UK intelligence today, saying that Ukrainian forces have managed to fight off several attacks there on the ground. But what more do we know about the situation more broadly in the east of the country?
Really heavy fighting there, all on the front line in the east of Ukraine, starting from near Kharkiv and going all the way towards Mariupol. This is a huge part of the country, big part of Ukraine. The head of Luhansk Regional Military Administration said 80% of his region's territory is now under Russian control. They already had control over that territory. The fighting there continues. Ukrainian forces managed to push Russian forces away a little bit from Kharkiv axis, but that's up north, so to say. And what they're trying to do there while they're fighting, they're trying to push further into Ukraine's territory from the east, but also they're trying to encircle Ukrainian fighters who are still there on the ground. And the Institute for the Study of War says Russians have not fully set conditions for the offensive operation because they did not really take time to regroup. And this is why the fighting continues. But as of now, apart from Kreminna, as the town that is now controlled by Russian forces, they did not manage to get more territory.
Meanwhile, we've also been hearing from President Zelensky talking about support from the West, essentially saying it's not enough.
It's not enough, and this is what he's been saying now for weeks. And he said, look, we're very grateful for all the support we're getting and for everything, but yet, as he said, it is unfair that Ukraine is still forced to ask for what its partners have been storing somewhere for years. He means the weaponry and everything that is equipment that the countries, the Western allies of Ukraine, they do have that in stocks and they're not using, because some of it is rather old equipment which they're no longer using. So this is the one that he's asking for now. The head of Ukraine negotiating team, key advisor to Zelensky, Podolyak, he also said that he accused world leaders of having blood on their hands while world watches the murder of children online and remains silent, again calling for more weapons. And we've heard this afternoon from Germany's foreign minister, who said that Berlin chooses not to reveal details about the weapons it has sent to Ukraine. There we have Western partners not revealing some of the details, others that are promising, but still Ukraine has to wait for that equipment to arrive. And Zelensky just asking for any weaponry, any equipment that they have.